Hi and welcome to Scott's Inverts. I'm Scott. These are the inverts. Today we are rehousing our Flamingo Chilus species Archaea or Archaea dark tree spider. She's a small juvenile, but she's absolutely stunning. We're then going to move on to a Neothele Incy Olive, another stunningly beautiful spider, that one being a dwarf species. I want to kind of focus sometimes a little bit more on spiders that are a little bit smaller in our collection instead of just going into rehousing adults and all the rest of it, because I think the smaller tarantulas, the juveniles and the slings, take up more of our actual collection than what the adults do. So let's go and rehouse these two absolutely stunningly beautiful spiders. Flamingo Chilus, the actual genus, was made by Pocock in 1865. Back then it contained only 2 spiders. We've added a few since then. Look at all that mould. But the ones we've added are all species and yet to be described, just like this species Archaea. And all that mould is the reason why we're actually rehousing this girl today. That piece of cork bark, there's a opening to a burrow just to the start of that cork bark, and then one where the tarantula room enclosures catch cup tube is going. I'm going to have to get myself a round one of these, because this square one going into a round enclosure, I can't see all the sides how I'd like to, so I am going to have to do this one. Very, very risky. So I'm going in, I'm going to remove some of that moss and get that moss out of there and out of the way, just to give me some more visibility on our spider. And that piece of cork to the right, that's going to have to come out as well. Hopefully she don't come flying out, and hopefully our girl is nice and relaxed this evening. And if you just see a molt there on top of the water dish, so I'm going to take that water dish out, give that a clean. I am going to reuse that. And there we are. We'll just put the lid back on top. Trying to create a very small gap, just big enough for the tongs to go in, so I can try and remove that cork bark. And in the end, she comes out, and at this stage I'm kind of thinking, how am I going to get you out of here safely? But she aims herself up towards the top of the enclosure, and I'm thinking, if I put that there, touch her bum ever so gently with the handle of the tongs, hopefully she'll go straight up inside. And she does. Isn't she good? And I tell you what, I breathed a sigh of relief at this point. She's gone straight into the dark end of the catch cup, nice and safe up there. Get the other end on, and our spider's nice and safe. So I'm going to put her to one side. If you do put her to one side, just remember to make sure you don't put it too close to an edge. We don't want to be knocking our spider onto the floor. But look at all that mould in there, absolutely disgusting. Might be alright in the wild for our spiders' burrows, but in a enclosure, I'm going to yeet it off. So we have gone for a Komodo 30 tall by 20 by 20. I absolutely love these enclosures. And the substrate we're using again today is Clover Irish peat moss. This peat moss is just absolutely brilliant. Reduces mold growth, reduces mushroom growth. It's really, really kind of a soft texture to your fingers as well, and really holds that humidity absolutely brilliantly. What I am doing is every inch just giving it a little spray, because my Irish peat moss has dried out a little bit. So that's what I've done, and every inch I've just tampered it down ever so gently. You remember, you don't want to compact it too hard, because our spider does want to burrow down inside that. Give the top of that one also a little spray down, and we're ready to put the cork bark tube into the enclosure. So we did put a little bit more substrate in. We've got about 5 inches of substrate, so it gives our spider room to burrow as well as go arboreal. We're pushing that cork bark in by about 2 inches, and I wanted to angle it because I want to give it a bit of stability. I find if you put them straight upright, they tend to lean or possibly fall over in the future anyway, so I angle mine this way. Now I've set in this enclosure up to keep our spider in here for at least another 4 or 5 molts before I need to even think about rehousing her. So she's in here for a good while yet. Backing it up at the very back, just creating some levels in there so it's not all flat, so she's got a better experience when she's wandering around her enclosure. Now, in the old enclosure she did burrow, so I'm going to put this piece of cork bark in there as well. Again, this is a species, so it's not been described, so we don't know 100% if they are arboreal all the time, or if it's arboreal and fossorial, similar to Psalmopaeus, whether they create a burrow at the base of that cork bark maybe she'll want to go off and create a burrow instead of living arboreal. So I'm going to give her the options, and we'll see in time where she prefers, which one she goes to, or maybe even she might flip between the two. But it's going to be really interesting to see over the kind of the next 12 months what she does inside this enclosure. So we have the court bark at the back, we have the court bark at the front. We go in with the Spider Shop Terra Moss again. I haven't been out to collect any fresh moss from the wild. I just really have not had time lately. So we've still got some of this left over. So we're going to put this across the top. Again, with the old enclosure that I did the other week with the Olivaceae, that moss in there is still this colour. It's not actually started to spring to life with that beautiful green that we expect to see with moss. But this stuff does the job. It holds the water, it holds the humidity, it keeps the humidity in the soil, acts a little bit like an insulator on the top of the soil as well. So for all intents and purposes, it is working an absolute treat. So if you can't get out into the wild, order yourself a bag of this and you've got some. Absolutely awesome. Give it a little spray. Now even moss like this will take on board 8 times its own weight in water. This is what makes it great for that humidity, so it slowly release it into the atmosphere of our enclosure. I've also put a bit of fake greenery to the back left there. There's a little water dish gone into the back right, and now we are ready to rehouse our spider into her new palace. And again, this one is going to be in here probably for a year, maybe 2 years, until she's had probably about 4 or 5 molts, and then we'll put her into a bigger enclosure. But for now, this is where our beautiful girl is going to reside. Absolutely awesome. And just while we're rehousing her now, I mean, I like to do this with our smaller spiders. When our spiders are small, very small juvies, I do like to put them in a nice enclosure. I know a lot of us do keep these still in those tall plastic rubs. You know, the ones that are all clouded up and stuff like that, you can't really see in there, not very appealing. I put them in here, and one of the main reasons is it's just aesthetically pleasing. Our little spiders, we give them a lot more room to wander about. Now people will say, but if you put them into a small enclosure, you know, they're not going to miss their food. Well, I say if you put them into a slightly big one, if you go looking from the outside, you can see your spider, so you can drop food right in front of them, not a problem. And there she is, just to give you a size comparison of our 2-inch spider in that 30 by 20 by 20 enclosure. I'm going to put this mesh on the top. I'm not going to slide it in, but that's a safety precaution again. So if she does fly, I can do that and hopefully stop her from flying out the top of that enclosure. Again, the handle end of those tongs, just very gently on her bum, and just look how beautiful this spider is. As adults, my God, these are just absolutely stunning. Just look, they are very, very fast spider as well, so please don't let this video kind of make you think that they're not. They are exceptionally fast. Absolutely beautiful. The little bum there, she's going behind the back of the cork. Oh man, these moments really make spider keeping absolutely special. You know she's going to go in there and absolutely love that enclosure, and that's the enclosure that we've done for her. She's actually gone right around the back, so she right to the back of the fake foliage that we've put in there, that fake greenery. And if you can just see that bottom left, hopefully you can see her, that's where she is, just that leg. Absolutely brilliant. But look at that, I mean, that's much better than one of those tiny sling pots, isn't it? And this is our Neothele Incy Olive, a Trinidad olive tarantula, a burrowing species, dwarf species. This enclosure is just a plastic one I found in B&M. It's around 4 or 5 inches tall and around 3 inches across. We've put some air holes around the side. Again, this spider will outgrow this enclosure in probably another year and a half. If it's a female, within 12 months if it's a male. Our spider, it looks like a tiny sling, but it's probably about a quarter of the way to being an adult size. I put some starter burrows in there with my finger. Oh my God, I always say that I do naturalistic enclosures. Well, today I found a skull, and I do like skulls, so this one is going in there as well. At the back left, we've got a burrow, but I end up covering it over in a minute, and I'll show you why. Because we want to put a water dish in there. So I'm like, well, I've not got enough room. So that top left, fill that little starter burrow back up again, and we've put the water dish in just there. The substrate in there is slightly moist, which is absolutely perfect for this species. We don't want it damp, but we also don't want it to dry out fully. So as long as we keep it a little bit moist, we are absolutely onto a winner. Again, the spider shop moss, because these guys can incorporate bits of moss and things like that into their burrows, into their webbing. They have also been known to do something similar to like a Chromatopalma cayenne pubescent, so a GBB, and that is absolutely web up the whole enclosure instead of being fossorial. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put that skull in there, to give her absolute tons of anchor points, the opportunity to use that as a hide while she's still quite small as well. And again, that piece of greenery that's going in there, more anchor points, and aesthetically pleasing when the wife has a look at round my collection. And that for me is absolutely perfect for the Incy. She can burrow down if she wants, or she can go in the skull and have a bit of hiding space. Now we use the tongs again here. Now if you're going to use tongs with such a small spider, be very, very, very careful. Their legs are exceptionally fragile. So what I want to do is get those tongs and start prodding around the enclosure. Now where those tongs are, that is the opening to her burrow, so I'm closing it off so she can't run back in there again, and I'm just moving that whole substrate there across, and that's just closed off both entrances to her burrow, so she can't go back inside that substrate. So as long as we're really gentle, she should hopefully go straight into this enclosure. If I'd have just done a water dish and bare soil as a fossorial, I think this spider would have ran in and ran back out again, and I probably would have lost her around the house in all honesty. But she's going down the side of the old enclosure. See how gently we touch the spider and she just goes straight in. Absolutely perfect. Neothele, Incy, Olive. Just look at that bum and those tiny little spinnerets. She is stunning. My word, I say she. This one's actually unsexed still, and the carapace as well is absolutely amazing on this dwarf species. But why not go a little bit fancier with our smaller, kind of younger tarantulas instead of just saving those posh enclosures for the bigger ones? I think doing this makes this hobby even better. Absolutely awesome. And this girl is absolutely loving her new enclosure as well. Again, let me know downstairs. I mean, look at that old enclosure. It's got nothing on the new one. Again, let me know down in the comments whether this is something that you'll be doing in the future. Sprucing up enclosures for the younger ones that we keep, as opposed to just keeping the posher or nicer enclosures for the adults. So she's going to love it in there. And she chucks out a load of webbing. I am going to be so happy. I would love to see that skull there covered in tons of Incy webbing. Absolutely brilliant. Awesome stuff. Boom! As easy as that. Two, I'm going to say, pretty nice enclosures. I don't know with that spider shop moss. I don't know whether it's going to turn green. The previous one hasn't yet. So I personally think I'm going to go back to collecting some out of the wild and using that with its already beautiful greens, fresh from the countryside as well, collected by ourselves. I think that's going to be a bit more worthwhile. But that spider shop stuff will do its job. It will hold that humidity, and it will obviously help to keep that humidity also in the soil. So if you can't get out to the countryside, or maybe you live in the middle of a city, that spider shop stuff, it's just as good. And yeah, the only difference between that and collecting it from the wild is green. So we're just looking at colours, and that is it. There's nothing wrong with that spider shop stuff. It does exactly what you want it to do. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of this video, I wanted to do something a little bit more with our smaller spiders. I mean, why should we stick them in a small sling pot and literally just let them live out so long in those, so many molts in there and all the rest of it? Or move them up into something else when we can create a real special home for them, something that's not only appealing to us, but when we have friends and visitors come round, they'd be a bit more like, oh, that's a nice enclosure, as well as being a nice spider. You know, hopefully then we can encourage some friends and family to also get into this beautiful hobby of ours. But thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate every single one of you. If you could also drop me a like or a share and a comment, that would be brilliant. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscription button for me too. But yeah, absolutely awesome stuff. If there is anything that you'd like to be seeing on this channel, again, either PM me across any of the social media links or drop a comment down below. And as always, guys, we shall see you again on the next one.